Cryptid Hunters, Chapter 5, The Gizmo. Marty was tired, but far too excited to rest. His bedroom was much bigger than the one he had shared with Luther at the boarding school. It had a king-size bed, a television, and a private bathroom. No more running down the hallway trying to avoid painful towel snaps from the older boys. He wasn't happy about the circumstances that had brought him to Kryptos, but he was pleased with the island, the squid, the bedroom, and the house, even though it was a little spooky. In the corner of the bedroom was a desk. On top of it was something about the size and shape of his Game Boy, which he had lost to Luther in a bet. "Marty, the computer's yours. We call it a gizmo. Enjoy. Wolf." It was the smallest computer Marty had ever seen. He carried it over to the bed, flipped open the cover, and pressed a button beneath the little screen. The computer booted up, and 8 icons appeared. GPS, teleconference, email, keyboard, locate, chat, video, cybervault. Marty found a stylus attached to the underside of the cover. He took it out and tapped the keyboard icon, and a small keyboard appeared on the screen. Cool. He tried the teleconference and chat icons, but nothing happened. He skipped the email icon, figuring it wouldn't work without an email account, and clicked the cybervault icon. To establish vault, please insert your disk. Don't have a disk, Marty said. He clicked the video icon. The screen went blank for a second, then filled with an aerial image of the coelacanth. He saw Phil's seaplane still tied to the dock. Then the camera swooped across open water. They must be using a helicopter to film this, Marty thought, but why? The camera circled back around and passed over the top of the red kayak. It was now resting safely on the beach, which he was glad to see. The camera plunged downward over the parking lot, where Marty caught a glimpse of Phil at the back of another person getting into a Humvee. A moment later, the Humvee drove away, and the camera followed it up the road for a while, then veered off into the trees and rose above them. The tops of fir trees flashed across the screen. In the distance, he could just make out 2 small lakes with the last glimmer of orange sunlight reflecting off the surfaces. Video terminated. The 7 icons reappeared. Marty whistled. The computer we built can't do that. Wait until I tell Luther. He clicked the locate icon. What do you want to locate? Wolf, Grace, Vid, Phil, Sr., Marty, PD, Phil Jr., Bertha, Bo. Continue to next list. Marty clicked his own name. An instant later, a floor plan appeared on the screen. In the southwest corner of bedroom number 6 was a small gray square. He carried the gizmo from the bed over to the desk. The gray square moved across the little screen at the exact same pace he was walking. When he stopped, the square stopped. When he moved, the square moved. Weird, he said, opening the bedroom door and stepping out into the hallway. The gray square was now in the hallway. He knocked on Grace's door. There was no answer. He walked in. The gray square moved into bedroom number 5. Very weird. He glanced at Grace's desk and saw that she had a gizmo identical to his. He sat on her bed and stared down at the gray square. How does the gizmo... He noticed the identification tag dangling from his neck and suddenly realized how it knew where he was. He clicked Grace's name. A blue square appeared in the library. Grace had stayed in her bedroom less than a minute before heading back downstairs, clutching the one-armed monkey for security, which she was badly in need of after the day's events. Mrs. Coutts, her English teacher, had told her that if she was curious about someone, all she had to do was look at their books. You can read a person like a book by the books they read, was how Mrs. Coutts put it, and Grace was desperate to learn more about their guardian. She hadn't noticed it when she was in the library earlier, but along the walls beneath the balcony was a glass display case. In it was an ancient illuminated manuscript, hand-lettered on parchment, beautifully illustrated, and written in a language Grace had never seen before. She stood in front of the case for a long time, staring at the 2 open pages, trying to decipher the words, but she could make nothing of them and finally turned away, walking up the spiral staircase to the library. Now these books I understand, she said. Grace loved reading science books, and Wolf had hundreds of them, carefully organized and labeled by subject. oceanography, geology, astronomy, meteorology, chemistry, mammals, birds. Marty will love this section, she thought, although I had better keep it to myself for the time being. He's already too excited about the island and wolf. Reptiles, fish, insects, dragons. Grace stopped. Dragons? She looked at the next section. It contained books on sea monsters. Next to this was lake monsters and a large section on Bigfoot and the Yeti, then mermaids and mermen and little humanoids, which was divided into subsections. Fairies, leprechauns, gnomes, pixies, ogres, brownies, trolls, and finally elves. Oh no, Grace thought with a racing heart. Wolf believes in Santa's helpers? If Mrs. Couts was right about the books a person reads, then her uncle was a lunatic. Grace completed the circle, stopping at the last section labeled General Cryptozoology. She looked back at the shelves she had passed. Clearly, 3/4 of the books were about monstrous impossibilities. Why had their parents made Wolf their guardian? They couldn't have possibly known about all this. She pulled out a book called The Hidden Ones, a compendium of cryptids, and started to read. Introduction. Cryptozoology is the study of animals that are believed to exist but cannot be proven to exist scientifically. Cryptids are the rarest animals on Earth, hidden by their isolation and low numbers. Perhaps the best-known examples are the Yeti, abdominal snowman in Asia, or the Sasquatch, Bigfoot in North America. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other cryptids of no lesser importance scattered around the globe waiting for scientific verification. These other cryptids include Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster of Scotland, the giant squid or kraken, of which no living specimens have been found, the chupacabra goatsucker found in the American Southwest, Mexico, and Central America, Grace became so involved in the implausible subject that she didn't notice Marty walk into the library until he called her name. She thought about answering him, but instead she scooted farther into the shadows. On occasion, Marty loved to scare the daylights out of her by jumping from concealed places when she least expected it. She swore that one day she would pay him back. This just might be the day, she thought. Marty didn't see Gizmo anywhere and was disappointed that the gizmo didn't work as he had thought. He slipped it into his pocket and walked over to the first aquarium for another look at the odd fish. Come on, Carp Lips, show me some life. He tapped on the glass. The fish didn't move. Grace rather liked watching Marty talk to himself and decided not to give herself away, at least not yet. Marty got bored with the passive fish and wandered over to the squid tank. Hey, squids, it's Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but this time I'm bigger than you. When he finished berating the squid, he went over to the fireplace. He squatted down on the hearth and moved the embers around with the poker. Then he picked his nose and flicked the harvest into the flames. Grace covered her mouth to stop herself from laughing. Marty and Luther were always calling people nose pickers. Who was the nose picker now? Marty went back over to the aquarium for a final look at the fish. Tell you what I'll do, Carp Breath. If you show me just a little bit of personality, I'll scoop a squid out and feed it to you. He waited a full minute. Fine, then, he said. No calamari for you. He headed for the door. Grace took a deep breath and was about to let out a blood-curdling yell, but changed her mind at the last second. She was comfortable sitting up on the balcony. It was the first time in nearly a week that she had felt reasonably content. She let him go, then slid out to the railing where the light was better, and returned to the cryptid book.